Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And I think we've got a good show coming up here. Since we last saw each other last night, I found out a couple of interesting things. One thing, it turns out, after all the very expensive violence that Columbia University and the NYPD did in order to shut down the anti-genocide encampment there, encampment's back, so that was fucking pointless. Yeah, I mean, just a complete, they just completely wasted their time and everybody's back. The whole point was to intimidate everybody out of trying something like that ever again that might interfere with the university's ability to profit from genocide, and they're back. So there you are. That's very nice to see. Meanwhile, Biden has decided to once again appropriate. I mean, he just occasionally will appropriate somebody else's language, and in this case, what's happened is he announced a comprehensive proposal for Gaza. And he, of course, tells this is his idea. The thing is that what he proposed is literally what the resistance accepted and has, in fact, been putting on the table for months and months and months. And that the last time that the resistance accepted it, the US and Israel rejected it out of hand in favor of incinerating Rafah. And, I mean, just to make this even more ridiculous, Biden prefaced this by talking about how, clearly the resistance has been completely defeated. They'll never show their heads again. And it's like, well, if they're so completely defeated, why have you been sweetening the deal every single time to make it stop? That sounds like they're maybe not so defeated. Like maybe the incompetent ghouls that you arm so heavily, with billions and billions of dollars, and the most high tech U.S. weapons. Maybe they're actually not doing all that well, because usually the way it works when you're winning is that your terms keep on getting more favorable for you and less for the other side, and it's been the opposite of that here. So yeah, that happened. I've got a bunch of options for what to look at tonight. All sorts of interesting bullshit. We've got some Xanderhole. Tanky YouTubers are getting worse. I mean, it would be interesting to see who now counts as a tanky. I mean, probably anyone who doesn't think that, tanks should be rolling through Gaza to blow up fucking schools and libraries and shit. Because that seems to be his use of the term. Anyone who doesn't like it when people are getting blown up by tanks is a tanky, according to Xanderhole. Got some quartering. That'll be interesting. Woke Black Samurai backlash goes nuclear. Assassin's Creed Shadows finally pushes gamers too far. Steven Crowder bombshell reveals woke military secrets putting us at risk, China risk, and much more. Putting it at risk and China risk and much more. I'm kind of curious what the woke military secrets are. And how the fuck Steven Crowder would be in possession of them. Got some Sam Harris bullshit here. Campus protests anti-Semitism and Western values. And then our favorite Zionist ghoulish, the View knockoff, the Quad. The Quad takes down Cardi B for Israel-Gaza genocide comments. Criminalizing self-defense, the ICC's immoral comparison between Hamas and Netanyahu. And it's so funny that they've all, every pro-Israel ghoul has now focused in on that. Because, it is actually obscene to be equating them, but not the way they mean. And there's also probably some Darman bullshit in here as well. I meant to add some new ones to the list just so they're available. Oh yes, that's right. Billionaires won't accept girls' goth look. So how's everybody doing, chat, and what sounds good to you? Oh, we've got Jeff Prager explaining the day Hamas surrenders, this will happen, and Tulsi Gabbard comes on PragerU to talk about how to save America from Washington elites. Wonder what she means by that. I think we'll start out with this one, though. It's a short one. It's going to be bullshit. It's going to be bullshit delivered condescendingly, because that's what Jeff Prager does. He's very condescending. He talks to his audience as if they're the sort of people who think that by putting university in the name of something, that makes it a legit academic institution.
Number 341. A very serious opening thought, but first I want to remind you that all the fireside chats are made possible thanks to the people, that is you, who joined Prager United.
And Prager United so that's who to blame for this crap. Well, that and the oil industry.
Possible, keeps it free, like everything we do at Prager University. And so we're very grateful to you, and we'd hope you join. Go to PragerUnited.com. There's a whole host of benefits for joining, aside from the fact that you're doing good work for the world.
No, you're not, though. What if actually, just bear with me for a second, Jeff? What if they're not actually doing good work? What if they're actually doing fairly evil work, helping to launder a propaganda op run by petro-billionaires and make it look like it's grassroots?
By keeping this going. PragerUnited.com. Well, I have a very serious topic today.
Despite not being a very serious person.
It's the subject of my column this week. So let me give you a little background. The most famous libel, I hope I don't have to define, but in case I do.
This is how little he thinks of his audience.
Is a deliberate lie about a person or a group. And the most famous libel is called the blood libel. For centuries, in various communities,
I mean, this bit is legit,
medieval Europe.
Let's see where he's going with this.
There were Christians, obviously not all Christians, but
yeah, he has to suck up because most of his people are anti-Semitic Christians, and they don't really want to hear about how actually the most dangerous neighbors Jews have ever had in our entire history are white Christians. They don't want to hear about that. But he knows, so he's actually having to really be very careful here, because if he talks about the fucking reality, it's gonna piss off his audience, which is exactly the sort of people who would do the blood libel. Lots of very anti-Semitic white Christian Zionist assholes.
Many, and it caused horrible suffering for Jews over the course of centuries. Jews were accused of taking a Christian child, slaughtering the child, and using the child's blood to bake matzah.
And there's a new version of this and he's not going to tell his audience about this because they would not warm to it. But actually, if you look at QAnon, they more or less just plagiarized and updated this traditional anti-Semitic bullshit.
Now, the staggering nature of the absurdity of it, and I wish it were just absurd, but it led to Jews.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's ever eaten matzah knows that shit has no flavor. There's no way that there's anything other than like some fucking flour and salt in that. Actually, let me just check. I've never made matzah, but I think, let's see. matzah. Ingredients. Flour, water, salt. That's some weird looking matzah in this recipe. And olive oil. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it has no flavor. If you just have to eat matzah to know there's absolutely nothing other than fucking flour, water, and maybe some olive oil in that shit.
Jews being burned alive, whole communities, all of British Jewry, English Jewry was expelled from England. I think it was the 13th century. And this continued for centuries.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting because what he's not going to talk, I'm sure maybe this is what he's going to talk about. Maybe the reason it's a serious topic is he's going to say some real shit, and he's going to point out how all the propaganda about all the horrible things Palestinians are supposed to have done on October 7th is a modern day blood libel that is specifically designed to create a genocidal mood by riling people up and making them think that that their victims are absolute monsters and anything that could happen to them is not bad enough.
So first you have to know how absurd it is, as I use the word absurd. Well, it's so absurd.
Is he going to explain absurd now? Is that how little he thinks of his audience? He just explained libel, now he's going to explain absurd.
Have you ever heard of matzah? That is the unleavened bread.
Oh, fuck. I did not just make the joke that he's about to make.
Of Passover.
Please tell me I did not just make the joke that Jeff Prager's about to make.
Having any blood used, how do you even do it? The absurdity of it.
Baking. I mean, the fucked up thing is I know enough about baking bread that, like, if you were going to do it, I was just about to say, well, you know, if you were going to do it, I guess it would be when you're dissolving the, well, there's no yeast in it, dissolving the flour in the water, and you do it then. But, yeah. Hello, Riveroon, how you doing?
Matzah with blood. Number two, there's been...
Oh, okay, thank fuck. He did not actually make the joke that I just made. I would feel very bad if I had anticipated the first bit of, like, actual humor that has ever crossed the lips of Jeff Prager.
There was a ban on eating blood, on consuming even meat with blood in it. It is one of the first laws of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. And by the way, interestingly, and I have to...
See, you can tell, like, for all the talk about supposedly all these, like, Jewish Republicans and shit like that, clearly, like, the people who are writing propaganda for that audience do not assume any prior knowledge on any Jewish topic.
Discuss this with some of my Christian pastor friends and priest friends, is how do they regard it? Because it is a universal law. This law is before the 10 Commandments, before laws given specifically to Jews. And that is that human beings shall not consume animal blood when they eat animals.
Well, I mean, clearly nobody else got the message that that wasn't just specifically for Jews, though, because, like, I don't know of a single Christian sect that believes in that. I mean, they have this wonderful sort of very selective thing, very cafeteria style, as I understand it, where it's like, Jesus relieved us of the need to follow any of those commandments, except the ones we like be homophobic or something like that. And we'll keep the 10 Commandments because, I mean, those are kind of cool, you know, but isn't that the whole idea? I don't think it is as universal as he seems to think it is.
The idea is blood.
But wait, this is supposed to be about when Hamas surrenders, this will happen. Is he going to talk about that?
And it's written, blood is life, which is true. And you can take the animal's carcass, its flesh, and eat it, but you can't take its life. It's symbolic and powerful. So Jews obviously could not consume human blood, but they could not even consume for 3,000 years. And
yeah, I'm sure, like, I would love to just see him trying to explain this to a pogrom. Like, I mean, this is just, it's like, yeah, what he's saying here is right. I mean, he does know about Jewish shit, unlike his audience. And he knows better than to say a lot of the stuff he says about Christians. If you go back to the 90s, before he was really trying to suck up to evangelicals, he actually called them the fuck out quite a few times from his, like, right-wing Jewish perspective about how they were, I mean, he just called them a bunch of illiterates, basically. But, yeah, I don't think that this was ever meant. It's a lot like the claims that Israel and the U.S. made about October 7th. They were not meant to be reasoned through critically and researched. They were meant to be immediately absorbed, taken on board, and elicit an immediate visceral reaction that results in large amounts of murder. What really to the bit where in the 90s he actually called evangelicals out for their, like, worship of ignorance or something, words to that effect. Yeah, I mean, that surprised me too.
And it was strictly obeyed animal blood. Bake, bake matzah with human blood. I mean, the evil of this libel is staggering. But it was spread. We now have, that's my background, we now have...
Oh, finally, okay. 4 minutes in, he's actually going to talk about the thing that's in the name of the fucking video.
an equivalent libel against the Jews.
Okay, first of all...
And that is the genocide libel.
Nobody's saying the Jews, motherfucker. Get that out of your mouth. You don't need to be taking that on for us. That's Israel. That's not the Jews. And the people who are pointing out that there's genocide going on, the overwhelming majority make that distinction even though Israel and Zionists refuse to.
It is as great a lie as the blood libel. I hope it takes on a life of its own as the second great lie about...
Well, yeah, except the thing is, when you do this, when you claim that a thing that people can actually watch in real time is equivalent to the blood libel, which was an actual lie, what you're doing is validating the blood libel. That's like, because people can actually look at this genocide. Nobody could ever look at the fucking... They didn't have, when the blood libel was really big, they didn't have cameras and shit. Even if there were any truth to it, they wouldn't be able to film it. We can actually watch this fucking genocide, and a lot of us have been. So if you're saying that the genocide, that pointing out that this is genocide is the same thing as the blood libel, that begins to sound like you're actually kind of suggesting there was something to the blood libel.
Jews, that the Jewish state is committing...
Yeah, fuck this Jewish state bullshit, too. It is the Zionist state. The only thing supposedly Jewish about it is that Jews are given greater legal rights than anyone else in the state. Which is not a Jewish thing. That is a Zionist thing. It is the state of the Zionist movement, and I would say it is actually anti-Semitic to claim that it is, because the minute you're saying that, you're like blaming all Jews for the state, and most of us have no say in it. Most of us don't live there. And the tendency has been to increase. There have always been more Jews outside of Israel than in, and lots of Jews, like especially progressive leaning, liberal Zionist and especially anti-Zionist Israeli Jews have been buggering off for a long time because the climate is dangerous as hell. So if anything, the tendency is for more of us to be like disconnected from this regime than are directly in any way connected to it and, in any way have any influence over it. Because just because you're Jewish doesn't mean you get to vote in the fucking elections. Unless you go there and you apply for citizenship and you're granted citizenship and stuff.
Genocide in Gaza. So a few responses. Number one.
Oh, I can't wait.
Not in order of importance, but nevertheless, here they go. A few. This is my weekly reminder that the rest of the fireside chat is that
So he doesn't even say. Okay, the whole reason I turned this thing on is not on there. Yeah, that's right. They're doing this thing where all their shit, anything he says, it's just a fucking teaser for. So okay, we got a number of options here. Let's see. AOC rails against the toxic online left. That's Vush. We've got Biden campaign revels in Trump guilty verdict, gloats and calls him a felon. Let us see. Xanderhole, tanky YouTubers are getting worse. Israel and Hamas leaders may be arrested for crimes against humanity, also Xanderhole. We've got the quartering bullshit. Haven't really done him on this channel. We've got Sam Harris going to talk about, he's gonna lie about anti-Semitism. And we've got the Quad. And we've got, some Darman shit where it's like, billionaires don't like the goth aesthetic or something. And we'll be shocked about what happens next. So, what sounds good? We've also got Steven Crowder. Bombshell reveals woke military secrets, putting us at risk, China risk, and much more. Got woke military secrets. That's the fucking quartering. That's Jeremy Hambone. So, what sounds good, chat? And if you've got suggestions, if there's something you'd like to see me react to that I haven't noticed, feel free to tell me about it too. Oh, well, we got two of them. They're taking down Cardi B for her Israel-Gaza genocide comments, and they're also complaining about the ICC's arrest warrants. Yeah, why don't we have a look at those ghouls? Get ready for the only pro-Israel propaganda program with these awful fucking people.
The church, there are no churches in Gaza. Unfortunately, there are no Christians.
And now the Arab population has increased over time for all their whining. But can I add one thing to that?
Yep.
And what? I thought it was fascinating, distressing.
Sometimes the Hezbollah, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
God, they suck. Okay. Yeah, we have not. We're gonna find out that Cardi B is apparently some kind of a hypocrite. And these are the people to tell us about it, I'm sure.
I seem more special than other weeks in
The fake deputy mayor who claimed there were no Christians in Gaza at a time that they were being massacred.
terms of the spoiled for
she
choice
misspoke.
nature of the amount of terrible cretins there are in this world.
Terrible cretins.
Terrible cretins.
Well, why are they not good at being cretins?
And so, Ashira, all the way from the United States over there, who's your scumbag this week?
My scumbag this
They're scumbag this week. That's so funny because they're my scumbag this week. Yeah.
This week is American rapper Cardi B. She has come out and says she will not be supporting the Biden administration with her vote this year because the Biden administration is funding genocide in Palestine.
Which, good on her. And you would think that this is like, you might be surprised by this. But this is actually already uncomfortable ground for these ghouls. because they've been claiming, I mean, they have these absolutely wild headlines on their videos and thumbnails saying things like Biden declares war on Israel and stuff like that. You would think that Biden had decided to actually arm the Palestinians or something from the way they've been talking about Biden. So how are they going to deal with the fact that, like, a normal person looks at Biden and says, yeah, he's funding the fucking genocide, he's the enemy?
She is completely hypocritical. This is a woman who has rapped about being in a blood gang, has
What's with this fucking camera angle? First of all, why do we? I'm not her ENT. I'm not like testing her from COVID. Why do I need to look up her nostrils? But sorry, I'm like interrupting. She was just about to explain how it's hypocritical to be against genocide when you've rapped about violence.
talked about publicly how she used to drug men and at knife point threaten men and steal and take money from them.
I mean, I don't know whether any of this is true. I really do not follow Cardi B. But that's still, I mean, assuming that's true, it's like, how is that hypocritical? I mean, it's not like Israel is just like, you know, doing muggings.
How she has threatened people publicly to have her quote unquote hitters, her gangs, to go out and murder women who have slept with her husband. And now she's all of a sudden having this halo moment that she's this angel and wants to talk about genocide in Palestine.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you say it that way, it makes no fucking sense at all, because those are very different things, actually, I think you'll find.
So she is my scumbag of this week.
Oh,
Okay,
well,
I have to say,
Speaking as a scumbag of every week.
like that person is even an influencer.
she's
Like
a
what
singer.
what else do you need to know about the demise of Western society?
She's a
Exactly.
major rapper,
Like,
Vivian.
She's a major rapper, and she's
Okay.
Well, I mean, yeah, pulse of a generation right here.
pretty ignorant. I mean, she's not
Well-
an educated person.
Well, yeah,
Oh, you said that there were no Christians in Gaza and no churches when churches were under attack.
I just
I
bring
mean-
back
Illiterate.
honor to all those out there who are watching and thinking, huh? What's her name? Me too. Never heard of her.
Cardi
okay?
B.
Cardi B's pretty big. She's like that.
I do not live in a cave,
She's-
and I've never heard of her.
She's like the female Kanye.
Okay,
You've heard of Kanye.
I've heard of Kanye.
So she's now joined the scumbag Kanye bucket. Cardi B, it's a shame. I used to like your music. I will.
Well, I'm sure she's really, really hurt to hear that the racist fake deputy mayor, totally her target demographic, I would imagine. I mean, she really goes for the titled posh barristers from London. That is totally who she's aiming at.
not be hearing it anymore, and I'm sure my brain
Hey,
will
Adam.
be better for it.
F-bomb to you.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Shira.
That is so cute. They will endorse genocide on here, but they won't say fuck. They just inspire other people to say fuck.
Vivian,
Oh, now my turn?
yes.
The lovely. I like cretins.
Oh, I
love
said curtain of the week.
I mean, that's actually kind of fucking ableist. It refers specifically to cognitive dysfunction caused by hypothyroidism.
But they said it was too British.
It is, but that's why I like it.
Okay.
So anyhow, I'm my cretin of the week is Cristiano Ampor,
Oh,
who I did talk about her in the earlier segment. She's
See, this is wild. Because again, I mean, this is a total mainstream I mean, she was like a CNN anchor for ages. I'm not sure what she gets up to these days. Is she still on CNN? Yeah, chief international anchor for CNN. a network that has promoted Israeli propaganda throughout this thing has like systematically done it.
He's the superstar, international correspondent, whatever, of CNN, based in London. She somehow managed to scoop a lengthy sit-down interview with the chief prosecutor of the ICC yesterday, immediately after he made his outrageous.
Well, yeah, somehow. I mean, that is so weird that a like leading international TV journalist would be able to get an interview with somebody. I mean, that never happens.
And surprise announcement.
The curation of this.
Correct. I mean, clearly choreographed and staged, and there was Christian. And aside from the fact that
Israel would never choreograph and stage anything.
she was just giddy with a glee she didn't even try to contain or hide,
Yep.
right?
She had a spring in her step.
She had a spring in her step. Like, did she say anything? She just sat down and interviewed the guy. That's a thing that journalists do, I think you'll find.
This, again, I mean, you want another sign of the demise of Western civilization, that this person and this network are held up as news, as legitimate.
I mean, okay, yeah, definitely, because they have, I mean, it is wild. Let me see, where was it? Mondo Weiss did a thing, I think it was. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to drop this link in there. The degree to which CNN bends over backwards to do propaganda for Israel, and these people are acting like they're the enemy. That is the level of just paranoia in the Zionist mentality.
As in any way credible. And I have a...
This is just for interviewing the guy. It isn't like she said anything good about him. I mean, they haven't, if she said anything they don't like, they haven't even mentioned it. It's that she interviewed him and apparently she had a spring in her step.
Personal, deep loathing of that woman. Because it just, how do you sit there and lie to the world
What are the lies? What kind of lying?
way you do? So I don't even want to say it's just like it doesn't get more good.
No, she's been horrible. In general, this war has been really the peak of her horribleness. She's married or was married to a Jew?
Was,
right?
Wow, I mean, that's anti-Semitic. She married a Jewish guy.
yeah, but I don't know that he's a Jewish Jew.
Probably not.
Oh, yeah, see, that's so cute. Like, so apparently what does she mean? He's a Jewish Jew.
But also, when she interviewed Queen Rainier, one of our previous scumbags, I think it was back in December, she completely softballed her, all the questions, had zero scrutiny for her, just accepted Rainier's lies. And so...
Like what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, first of all, we're talking about the Queen of Jordan, okay? Jordan has been essential in making this genocide happen. Jordan is utterly Israel's lapdog. To the extent that people have been just all filling the streets in Jordan demanding an end to, to the end to the normalization of relations and demanding to actually... So, for Jordan to support the resistance. Like, Jordan is not the enemy. Not for them. Jordan is, Jordan is a fucking lapdog. This is just wild. This is how utterly paranoid they are. That, they're gonna just, freak out over... some of their like essential allies here.
Oh, she is a piece of work, that Christiana.
So I don't like all of you people out there who watch.
Like they literally have not told us a single thing that we should not like about her, except for her spring in her step when she went to get a big interview, because that is a huge interview. It's a big fucking story. You would expect a journalist to be pretty excited to be covering it, whatever they think about the decision, because it's a big fucking story. Of course she'd be excited. But we have to take their word for it. Oh, this is a wonderful freeze frame I've got of Vivian Berkovich here. Former Canadian ambassador to Israel. She's collecting the Settler Colonial box set.
CNN and bolster their ratings. Question that. Really?
Well, at least don't watch the show. Jake Tapper's been amazing.
Jake Tapper's.
Yeah, I mean, and here she is, they're debunking themselves in real time, because, yeah, Jake Tapper has promoted every single, like, Israeli talking point. Just not even bothering, nothing gets fact-checked. He will just come out with every single fucking lie. I mean, CNN is awful, but it's like wild that they would think CNN is awful, because CNN is doing pro-Israel propaganda.
It's been amazing, but why is this person so exalted? Why is she given this platform?
You know why?
Tell me.
Because she interviews the Ayatollahs and wears a hijab.
Right, I remember that.
That's why.
Anyhow,
no feminism there. Okay, that's a...
Your cretin?
My cretin / scumbag. I'm not letting go of scumbag. I get stopped by the...
Yeah, I mean, you can't be a Zionist propagandist and let go of scumbags. They're your target audience.
I like
Stop on the street. Mine is Karim Khan.
And this is another example. Like, Israel and Britain celebrated when he got named chief prosecutor. It was understood to guarantee that the Palestine file was going to gather dust. Israel has been revealed to have been carrying out a massive campaign of threats and bribery and intimidation against the ICC, not to mention bugging them and all sorts of other stuff. It was an absolute shocker that he ended up doing this. Nobody was really expecting that, precisely because he has, for the most part, completely... he's shown absolutely no inclination to buck the U.S.'s prerogatives on these things.
Karim Khan is the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. Like you said, Vivian, he had a good career. This man, who seemed decent, seemed professional. So
yeah, exactly. Israel actually was quite happy with his nomination, because there was no reason to believe he was ever going to try to make the ICC into anything other than what it had always been, which is a court for African dictators who stopped paying protection money to the West. That's like all they've ever... I don't think they've ever actually tried a case against a white guy in the entire time. I mean, if Putin actually gets tried, which is doubtful, that'll be their first time ever. So, yeah, I mean, they did. And Karim Khan is a London barrister. She's a London barrister. They probably, if they haven't met each other, they definitely act in the same circles. So, when she's saying this, what she's saying is that the assessment that led him to become the chief prosecutor, which is that he was not going to rock the boat.
Surrounded himself with, as you said, a bunch of these woke so-called human rights activists, including Amal Clooney, who...
Yeah, wow, it's so terrible that the International Criminal Court would be surrounding itself with human rights advocates. Like, why would the International Criminal Court, which tries, human rights atrocities, that's their brief, why would they be connected with human rights people? That's so unseemly.
We can also push in there as a scumbag. In fact, all of the ICC right now can be seen as a scumbag.
They haven't even granted the arrest warrants.
They've got the court Jew. They've got some guy called Friedman. They've got another Israeli-American guy called Meron, who is known. These are, of course, we can put them in the category of the capo Jews who...
Okay, Zionists need to shut the fuck up about that. One of their biggest own goals was when they started calling Jews who oppose Zionism or are even just liberal Zionist Jews capos. Because the thing is, it leads people with any level of intellectual curiosity to ask the question, what was the Zionist movement doing in our darkest hour? And oh wow, the Zionist movement was sucking up to the guys who were trying to kill us. The Zionist movement broke a boycott that actually made Hitler very nervous at a time when his power was by no means consolidated. Like, everywhere you turn, you look at the Zionist movement in Nazi-occupied Europe, you will find them just completely stabbing European Jews in the back. So, like, calling us capos when Zionists ended up... See, there were... for people who aren't familiar with the history of the ghettos, they were what were called Judenräte, Jewish councils. And early on, people thought that these might be a position from which you could possibly do some good. So you had decent people in the first, in the early period, volunteering to be part of these councils. And they very quickly realized there was absolutely no way that this could be used for good. It was totally a rubber stamp for the Nazis. And they resigned in disgust at it. And then you got a whole bunch of opportunists, and you got a lot of Zionists, actually, in those Judenräte, who, as a matter of principle, refused to resist the Nazis because they considered that it wasn't their fight. Like, I mean, that's not to say that there weren't grassroots Zionists who actually were resisted. Like, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising did have Zionists involved in it. Grassroots members who were going against their movement. The movement told them, why the fuck are you doing this? We can get you out of there. We can get you to Palestine. This is not your fight. Don't bother with this. But, I mean, they had the consciousness and the conscience to say, no, this absolutely is my fucking fight. I've got to do this. Fuck you on that. But the movement as a whole, the movement leadership, utterly betrayed Jews in easily our darkest hour. So for them to be throwing around the word capo, they could just fuck off.
Somehow want to ingratiate themselves with the Jew haters, thinking that they will be protected. We saw it in the Second World War.
Oh, tell me again who Yair Netanyahu, your prime minister's son, likes to hang out with. He just hangs out with a bunch of neo-Nazis. In fact, the Minister for Diaspora Affairs, the Israeli Minister for Diaspora Affairs, just recently, there was a big meeting of all the big neo-Nazi groups, the big neo-Nazi parties in Europe. And Netanyahu's Minister for Diaspora Affairs was in the thick of it, because those are the people the Israeli government has the closest relations with in European politics, the biggest anti-Semites in Europe.
And this Karim Khan has brought enormous discredit to the organization that he's supposed to be representing. He, exactly as you said, went straight onto TV to make a song and dance about it. And I'm praying that there's a little miracle here and the court actually gets so much...
Oh, wow. I mean, imagine going onto television to make an announcement. Just imagine going on television to make an announcement. Like, I mean, what if somebody were to, like, go on television and claim that there were 40 beheaded babies and there weren't, and it was a big lie, and they made a song and dance about it, and motherfuckers are still making a song and dance about that even now? That would be kind of fucked up.
Much pressure from the decent countries of this world that they do not agree to issue those warrants But either way,
The
Karim
decent
Khan,
countries.
you are the scumbag of the year.
Ah, yeah, go Fleur.
What else am I going to say? All right.
Great, I totally agree.
Let's go now and really kind of cleanse ourselves from all those
Oh God, they're not gonna have enemas on screen, are they?
scumbags and find some heroes, because for as many scumbags as there are many heroes also. Ashira, who's your hero this week?
Okay. I'm actually sort of shuddering to think who their heroes are going to be. Considering, like, how fucking mainstream their scumbags are. Like, Christiane Amanpour, they didn't even, like, quote her as saying anything pro-Palestinian. She just sat down for an interview in a major news story and allegedly had a spring in her step.
Week.
My hero this week is a sweet little 6-year-old girl named Eden Rose. Her mother was having her graduating from NYC Law School, and some Palestinian protesters went up and started protesting the graduation.
Yes, because a lot of people are not being allowed to graduate because they went to anti-genocide protests.
And Eden was sitting in the audience, and she had drawn a heart that day at school, and she went up to the stage all on her own, and she put up her poster, which was just a heart.
Oh, well, that is just... So, they're deciding to treat this 6-year-old who has no idea why there's a protest going on, like she's some sort of, like, hero for Zionism, because when her mother was graduating, she brought a poster of a heart. Like, is this going to be, like, is this what we're getting?
And walked around the stage alongside the Palestinian protesters with the heart. And I just thought this was so...
Yeah, I mean, and notice, I thought she was about to, like, accuse pro-Palestinian protesters who were protesting against students being refused the right to graduate because they protested. She's not mentioning it, it bears repeating. But no. Apparently they were chill, as you would expect them to be, because they have no reason not to be. But I was actually expecting there was going to be at least some fake accusation of something else. But no, she just had a picture of a heart. Like, this is nothing. This is absolute. I mean, it's cute. Like, it's cute. She did a nice thing for her mom. I mean, it's sweet. But, like, what does it have to do with anything?
Oh, precious. Like, how does a 6-year-old know to get up and say, you know what, I'm going to go up there and have peace? These people are...
That's not... Her mom's graduating and she wanted to have a heart that she'd already drawn, probably for her mom.
Acting completely crazy, and I'm going to go and show love and peace. And it just restored my faith in humanity to see such...
That's so fitting, because her faith in humanity is restored by a literal child who didn't understand what was going on or what the stakes were, and did not do anything that actually took a position other than I love my mom. Which, again, absolutely adorable. The sweetest thing. I mean, that's sweet. There's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely, like, but this has nothing to... Like, what she's trying to do... Like this is like some sort of like counter demonstration.
Such a young person have that type of boldness and awareness to get up and go.
That isn't boldness and awareness. People like 6-year-olds. One of the things about being a 6-year-old is that you lack the awareness that you're being bold a lot of the time.
Do that all on her own. So Eden Rose is my hero this week.
She made the headlines, and for good reason. We need more Eden Roses.
You mean you need more people who don't actually know what's going on?
For the next generation of
stakes
leaders. Great hero. Thank you.
I can't wait. I hope... I want to file this away and wait in 10 years and see what she has to say then.
You, Ashira. Vivian.
Well, again, I feel like I live in a cave. Thank you, Ashira. So my hero of the week is UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak.
Wow, like the one person in the world who likes Rishi Sunak. His party is about to actually be like fall down to the level of the Lib Dems, according to the last polling I saw for this general election. And it's not because people love Starmer; it's because they're absolutely disgusted with Sunak, this fucking literal billionaire who cheats on his taxes and has spent his entire tenure in Downing Street screwing over working people and doing genocide.
Who, got off to a slow start, but has really started to turn into an actual leader.
I agree.
And he made a statement yesterday. I just want to say that for all you, people who follow Canada closely out there, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, has not said anything.
Shocker.
I know.
Not said anything about what? The fact that fucking Rishi Sunak said something? Is that how it works? Is Justin Trudeau supposed to like say something just because Rishi Sunak did?
No. And when he does, it's not going to be good for us. But I want to read this. I don't do this often, but it's
or is this about the ICC? Maybe it's about the ICC.
so important. The statement made by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak yesterday. UK's government issued a statement on Monday, blah, 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 okay, saying they don't support the International Criminal Court's decision to pursue arrest warrants against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant.
Yeah, of course not, because the thing is, Britain recognizes the ICC. They have literally no legal objection if the ICC were to pursue charges against them for their role in this genocide, which they absolutely fucking should. So Rishi Sunak has every reason, and all of his cronies and fucking in the cabinet have every reason to be outraged about what the ICC is doing, because, I mean, there's no reason they wouldn't be next.
The quote is, "We do not believe that seeking warrants will help get hostages out, get aid in, or deliver a sustainable ceasefire."
Notice she's praising him. Like, on this channel, they, like, pretend that there's no... Even though Israel openly says that they're blocking aid, they don't make a secret of it. It was one of their stated parameters for how they were going to do the genocide. But even Rishi Sunak, absolute fucking disgusting prick that he is, acknowledges that actually aid is not getting in. But this is...
UK's priority. As we have said from the outset, we do not think the ICC has jurisdiction in this case. Well, we know it doesn't.
We know it literally does. The Rome Statute very specifically states that if that the court has jurisdiction over any crime that is committed on the territory of a member state of the Rome Statute, by no matter the nationality of the person or state committing it. So, and they recognize Palestine as a state for the purposes of the Rome Statute, which is the only reason that they can charge Haniya and Mohammed Taif and them. But, okay, so they do have jurisdiction. They absolutely have jurisdiction.
The UK has not yet recognized Palestine as a state, ICC has, and Israel is not a state party to the Rome Statutes. In other words, we're going to do everything we can in concert with the United States and any other countries that still have a scintilla of sane leadership.
Yeah.
And other countries that are looking at this and see that they would be obvious choices for co-defendants.
To pressure the ICC not to go ahead with issuing these warrants. That's what I read between those lines, and I say,
I'm with you.
Thank you, Rishi, because he's going to get significant domestic blowback because of this statement. He has a large Muslim population in his country.
And it's not just the Muslim population that hates him. Everybody hates him. Like, he is an extremely unpopular guy. He wasn't popular to begin with. The Tories were scraping the bottom of the barrel when they decided on him. they'd already gone through like all of their like charismatic people, everyone who had some some kind of indication that they breathed air and drank water. I mean, they went through fucking Cameron and May, all those people. Like when they got to Sunak, they were well into the dregs.
And he's standing up for what's right.
He did the right thing.
Yep.
No, all credit to Rishi Sunak. Really, really happy with his reaction, and the UK
And he'll
is
be very happy
important
because this will be like the very first time that anyone has ever said anything nice about him.
party here.
Very important.
So I'm really proud of my British roots right now.
Me too.
So my hero, a guy I met last night.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I was invited to a dinner with Elise Stefanik.
Okay, these people were just talking about capos. Elise Stefanik is a big fucking anti-Semite. I mean, they're like posturing, all these pricks that are posturing about campus anti-Semitism. You go back and you look at what they were saying about Charlottesville when that pogrom was going on there, when neo-Nazis were bearing torches, were marching through the campus. Out-of-town neo-Nazis, nothing to do with the university, just invaded the campus, chanting, Jews will not replace us. And you find people like this were cheering at the time, or they had nothing to say about it. They didn't like condemn it or anything. Like, you could talk about, you could have called somebody capos and you hang out with a fucking Nazi.
Who made a fantastic appearance in the Knesset with a very strong speech about Jewish hatred on campus.
Well, yes, because she hates Jews on and off campus.
And her own efforts. We've spoken about her on our show, and I told her that.
You talk about fucking capos.
Many times before, her own efforts. Really spearheading the fight against university administrators who are simply morally confused. They're not calling
morally confused
anti-Semitism for it is, and they're letting these gangs of hooligans just run riot.
Like they're having fucking sit-ins like hooligans do.
And what she did tell me, which I'm very encouraged about, is that they're going to go and hit them where it hurts with state funding and everything else that comes to those universities from very...
Like, I mean, you can't, I mean, it was like 5 minutes ago she was calling people capos, and now her hero for the day is one of the U.S.'s most prominent anti-Semites.
Significant budgets. This is not just going to be, as you like to say, Ashira, performative. There's actually going to be a price to pay for not protecting Jewish students, for allowing blatant anti-Semitism to run.
Yeah, I mean, this is all a lie, and it's absolutely absurd when she's going to, like, when she's praising Elise Stefanik for caring about anti-Semitism. Like, that's just wild. This is, I mean, like, sometimes you will hear, like, liberal Zionists in particular really don't like it when you bring up, and they'll, like, say it's, they'll acknowledge that the Zionist movement, sometimes they'll acknowledge anyway, didn't cover themselves in glory during the Holocaust, but they'll say, why bring that up now? It's ancient history. This is why it's not ancient history. They were doing it before that. They're still doing it now. The Zionist movement always sucks up to the big anti-Semites.
Run riot, and that is going to have a cost. And I've got to say, I was impressed with her. She's a wonderful, modest woman. I had a fantastic conversation, but she's going to get this done because she's very strong, very morally clear. She came here to Israel. She went to the Knesset. She addressed it. So I'm a huge...
Yeah, I mean, this is like, you don't get to talk about anti-Semitism anymore when you're endorsing somebody like this.
And I'm really, really happy that I got to meet her and thank her directly for all that she's doing for this absolute incredible cause that she's taken on.
And I'm just wildly envious.
The cause being genocide. Stopping protests against genocide.
Oh, next time I'll ask if I can bring a +1.
I'd behave well in everything.
Yeah, I mean, that facial expression is like that feeling when you know that her hero absolutely detests black people as well.
I know.
Yeah.
Taking you places before.
Performative? Is that like a whole millennial thing?
Performative. I love that.
You're right. Yeah.
Ashira
No, it's
is
a
like our
fucking
millennial...
Judith Butler thing. That's not a millennial thing. That goes back a while.
A woke dictionary.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I actually know what it means, but yeah.
So
Wow, I'm
just
impressed.
in Emily's name, I will allow myself to talk about her hero of the week. And all of you know that
Emily is the fake human rights activist with the perma sneer.
Emily has been a huge stalwart campaigner towards the freedom of the Iranian people against the Islamic Republic.
Which is to say that she would be absolutely fine if the Shah were still running it and it were still a fascist dictatorship.
And I thought her hero is brilliant. Emily's hero this week is the helicopter that downed the 5 snakes from the Iranian leadership that died
Oh, I mean, yeah, well, wonderful dehumanizing language
this
there.
week. And so every cloud literally has a silver lining. And we thank Emily for that fantastic idea. And with that, we're going to bid you goodbye
Ugh.
for another week. And again,
Thank fuck that's over. Okay, we still got a half hour to go. We got all sorts of options. Want to do some Darman bullshit, some quartering bullshit. We got all kinds of bullshit. I gotta say, Jesus fucking Christ. These fucking people. Ugh. What's everyone think? Darman, the quartering, Sam Harris. Ja, also genau das. Es geht darum, dass sie ja sich ja gegen den Völkermord ja ausgesprochen hat und man hat gemeint, sie sei scheinheilig, weil sie ja über Gewaltakte ja rappt. Ja, weil das ja das Gleiche ist. Also rappen über so Gewalttätigkeit und Völkermord begehen ist ja das Gleiche. So sehen es diese Drecksmenschen hier. But yeah, so where shall we go next, huh? Ah, ja, ist ja durchaus möglich. Was hast du? Oh, Sam Harris. I'm kind of interested in the Sam Harris one too. I haven't really looked at him. Actually, the last time I looked at him, it actually turned out to be actually a bit boring. But curious about this one. Let's just have a look at this. This is Sam Harris tries to make sense, apparently.
Welcome to the Make It Podcast. This is Sam Harris. Well, I suppose I should say something about the campus protests. There's a lot of anger and confusion out there. Just how much of a problem is this?
Anger and confusion.
Well, there's no question
so
that
cute.
much
He
of the
assumes he's the
chaos we
smartest
see
guy in any
online
room.
is performative, which is that much of the chaos. How much of a problem is this? Well, there's no question that much of the chaos we see online is performative, which is to say that it's being staged for the cameras. That doesn't mean it's entirely insincere, but it is interesting to consider whether the events themselves would have happened, or would have happened at this scale, and have this character, absent an ability to broadcast them on social media.
I mean, obviously social media plays a role in this. I mean, without social media, without, Palestinians having the ability to broadcast the genocide that they're experiencing as it unfolds, it probably wouldn't happen. But what's he gonna say here?
Of course,
He's already said he thinks it's insincere. He's not said that, he's not basing that on anything. He's just decided that that's the line he's gonna go with.
concern relates to far more than what's happening on college campuses in response to the war in Gaza. The combination of a smartphone and social media appears to be driving our species crazy. We're all effectively walking
Fortunately, we have Sam Harris here, the only sane guy.
around with a television studio in our pockets. And the question is, what is this doing to us? So this is just to say that
making Sam
when I
Harris
see video of
uncomfortable.
crowds of very smug and very hostile kids at our finest universities
I mean, he doesn't sound smug or hostile at all.
effectively supporting Hamas, I'm a little slow to conclude that this tells me everything I need to know about the scope of the problem. As I've
What
said,
is the problem? I mean, what are we calling I mean, clearly it's not that genocide is going on, but are you saying is the problem? He doesn't sound like he's specifically saying that people protesting it is the problem either. Naomi Zeib schon wieder.
before, the entire aftermath of October 7th has convinced me that I've been almost totally asleep to the current reality of anti-Semitism.
I mean, you hang out with lots of he hangs out with like fucking Fash. He hangs out with plenty of anti-Semites. He should know about the reality of anti-Semitism.
So I think it is a far bigger problem than I realized. But I still don't know how informative it is to see a video of some imbecile at Columbia or Harvard shouting for the Jews to go back to Poland. What I can say is that the response of these universities has been totally inadequate and hypocritical.
When did he say all this? 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I mean, we were already seeing just really unusual levels of police violence to break up these protests.
Their policies around protests have clearly been violated and have been for months. And as many people have pointed out, it's the obvious double standard here that constitutes anti-Semitism.
Well, no, I mean, it isn't a double standard at all, because they were trying to they didn't support these protests. They very much did not support these they sent cops in to bust heads.
I'm less worried about the specifics of each ugly incident.
Yeah, that is a very convenient position to take, because if you actually look at the specifics, it completely undermines his point.
Than I am about the fact that the administrations have been tolerating behavior that they simply would not tolerate had the objects of all this derision and abuse been anyone else. If these colleges had any number of people shouting...
I mean, like, these colleges let's remember one example of this is UVA in Charlottesville. They sent the cops in to bust heads at the anti-genocide encampment there. They did not do that, notably, when neo-Nazis were marching through the campus, shouting anti-Semitic slogans and bearing fucking lit torches. So I would actually say maybe that isn't the case. Maybe, in fact, others perhaps are actually treated better. Specifically, neo-Nazis were treated better.
that blacks should go back to Africa, or that trans people deserve to die.
I mean, all things that actually universities have said are free speech, and you're not allowed to protest against.
These students, to say nothing of professors who said such things, would be expelled.
No, they
This is
wouldn't.
clearly what should happen to the most uncivil actors here. All the kids who've been physically
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about a genocide. You got to be civil about it.
preventing Jewish students from accessing buildings on campus,
That's the thing that didn't happen.
threatening them with violence, simply
Didn't happen. I mean, cops were threatening Jewish students with violence. I mean, is he going to just kind of pretend that there weren't a huge number of Jewish students involved in these protests, like they had literal satyrs?
because they are Jewish. These kids should be expelled, without question. I mean, even if you concede that Israel is totally in the wrong, this would not justify the behavior we've been seeing on campus. I mean, imagine that China was doing something awful and
Well, yeah. Imagine if an official enemy was doing something awful. Actually, I mean, you would probably find that the university administration would tolerate protests like this about that because it's an official enemy. But the thing is, because it's an official enemy, our ability to affect it is basically nil. Then it really is just performative. And then you're joining in with a chorus of politicians who, all of whom are fucking war criminals and have huge amounts of blood on their hands, hypocritically claiming to care about human rights because China's doing something China's doing something bad. I mean, he lives in a parallel reality.
worthy of protest, which of course China often is. It's put 2 million Uyghurs and Turkic Muslims in concentration camps, where
Uyghurs are Turkic Muslims.
they are reportedly subjected to torture and sterilization and forced labor. Where are the protests?
I mean, there have been. But the thing is, there's not a whole lot. Again, there's like nothing. This is like, this reminds me of the time that, I forget who it was, some major media figure of the 1970s, who got really angry about the idea that anyone should be drawing attention to the genocide the US and Indonesia were committing in East Timor by saying that, I mean, stopping the genocide in East Timor would not help a single Cambodian. That's like, yeah, but you still shouldn't be doing genocide in East Timor. Like, what? That's a weird fucking standard that you're applying. Or like when Hillary Clinton had that wonderful line on that beautifully done campaign, absolutely no notes on that, back in 2016, where she's like, but will breaking up the banks end sexism? Like anyone had suggested it would?
Apparently no one cares. Not a peep out of Harvard or Stanford or Princeton or Yale.
I'm pretty sure you'll find they've all had quite a lot to say. I'm pretty sure that all of them will turn out to have some sort of group dedicated to protesting about that. And it will not have been subjected to the same sort of repression that anti-genocide groups are.
But let's say all these activist students started caring about China's abuse of their Muslim population and were protesting that. Imagine how the universities would respond.
Yeah, they would probably fund the protests. It would be celebrated. They would, absolutely be cool with it.
If these protesters started targeting other students on campus just because they happen to be Chinese, as though ethnically Chinese...
I mean, I love how we've gone from just asserting that something that never happened, to using that as the basis for the analogy.
Chinese Americans, or even Chinese nationals at Harvard, could be culpable for what the Chinese government was now doing. Imagine them not letting Chinese students access buildings.
I mean, so imagine if something similar to another thing that I just made up that didn't happen happened.
Okay. This would be immediately recognized to be morally insane and at odds with every core value of a university, and there would be zero tolerance for it. But the analogy actually understates the perversity of what's been happening, because many of these students are not merely protesting injustice and cruelty and innocent death and just happen to be harassing the wrong people.
But they're not. There's no evidence of them harassing any of the wrong people, though. I mean, this is shit that's just made up.
Rather, many of them are supporting injustice and cruelty and innocent death explicitly. Globalize the Intifada.
How is that promoting injustice, though? Intifada is an uprising. If you look at the Arabic Wikipedia, if you look up, like the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, the word that will be used is intifada. It literally just means shaking something off. It means an uprising. I mean, so is he trying to take the fucking enlightened centrist argument that genocide and resisting genocide are equally bad? Yeah, I
isn't a
mean,
call for
wonderfully ableist
peace.
shit from fucking.
It's a
Sam
call for
Harris.
the indiscriminate murder of Jews. I mean, I'm willing to cut college
That
kids
is not a call for the indiscriminate murder of Jews. That is just a fucking lie.
a fair amount of slack. But you mean to tell me that students at Harvard and Princeton and Stanford don't know that Palestinian intifadas entail a fair amount of suicidal terrorism?
Actually, that's not true. The second Intifada did include some suicide attacks. The first one was almost entirely non-violent mass resistance. It was things like strikes and stuff. The violence was entirely on Israel's side.
And the deliberate murder of non-combatants? The deliberate murder of non-combatants.
Okay, Sam is suggesting that it's an accident that they're cutting off all the food and destroying all of Gaza right now? Is he about to say that it's unintentional, that the entire fucking Gaza Strip has been carpet bombed, and that Israel's been bombing the shit out of every single hospital in the place, and torturing, making and disappearing all the doctors and shit?
I might have been confused about a few things when I was 19, but I was never that confused. How did these kids get so turned around? Well,
it's great because he does not actually make the argument. He just assumes what he's saying is totally, makes total sense, and just goes on. Like, every single thing he's saying is nonsense.
there are many reasons, but here's one. Qatar, the petrostate, has given tens of billions of dollars to U.S., Canadian, and British universities. Qatar has given more money to Western universities than any other country on Earth.
I would imagine that the Pentagon and the military-industrial complex probably spend more money on them.
The regime that controls Qatar is directly governed by the theology of the Muslim Brotherhood, of which Hamas is an offshoot. Where Jews are concerned, the Muslim Brotherhood is a fusion of Islamism and Nazism, and actually genocidal
we're also getting into Holocaust denial here now.
intent. Through another radical group, American Muslims for Palestine, the Muslim Brotherhood funds the student group that has been one of the
Sam Harris, one of the best humiliations of Sam Harris was when he had a correspondence with Noam Chomsky. And Noam Chomsky made the obvious point that actually when you deliberately bomb a pharmaceuticals factory in a poor country, knowing that that's going to kill a huge number of people and you just don't care, that's actually even worse than intending to kill every single one of those people. Because to intend to kill them means that you actually acknowledge them as human beings, whereas the U.S. treated that mass murder, the victims of that mass murder, like they weren't even worthy of acknowledgement. And Sam Harris, just basically kept on feverishly writing back about how he just doesn't comprehend the point of that, because he's a total liar, and he has himself repeatedly defended the deliberate mass murder of non-combatants. He's cool with the mass murder of non-combatants. And that, not fake mass murder of non-combatants where we just pretend that that's what Intifada means, but the actual thing, when it's actually people doing that thing. Here he is actually doing propaganda for it right now.
primary organizers of these protests, Students for Justice in Palestine. They also fund a group of very confused Jews at these protests, Jewish Voices for Peace.
I love that we're supposedly confused. It's also not Jewish Voices for Peace. We couldn't possibly simply reject Zionist ideology as a racist monstrosity. We've got to just be confused. That is just fucking insulting. At least give us the respect of saying that we have made an informed decision to oppose your fucking bullshit.
This money trail was exposed by Charles Asher Small at the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. Qatar also owns major soccer teams in Europe, and Al Jazeera, the so-called news organization.
The so-called news organization, as opposed to whatever the fuck he thinks is reasonable.
Which has the same journalistic integrity as Russia Today.
Or CNN.
It's just a fountain of Islamist lies. All of this amounts to a
It's
side
actually a fountain of, like, live, real-time footage of what's going on in Gaza.
op on the West, and on Western education in particular. For decades, we have had Middle Eastern studies departments funded by Islamist theocrats and anti-Semites. Why have we tolerated this malicious...
Well, because those Muslim studies departments are mostly used to generate, the work product is mostly used in order to help the U.S. better try to control the populations in Muslim majority countries. Like these, those sorts of departments are very much plugged into the military system. That is basically the point of it. That's why anyone in the U.S. is funding this. Nobody particularly gives a shit about Muslim studies, at the sort of elite level, except to the extent that it can be used to manipulate and control Muslims. And that's the purpose of it. Same thing, like the Ministry of Defense in Britain funds anthropology work at the School of Oriental and African Studies, which is still called that in this year of 2024. And the reason they do that is because anthropologists help them learn how best to manipulate populations that they're trying to control in, say, Iraq.
exercise of soft power. Seems that money and oil are still just irresistible. Students for Justice in Palestine wrote the following in response to the atrocities of October 7th. National liberation is near. Glory to our resistance, to our martyrs, to our steadfast people. Resistance comes in all forms: armed struggle, general strikes, and...
Now what he's doing, this is a very clever lie. Because, remember, there was an appreciable lag between the first reports where it was the breaking down of the ghetto perimeter and the fucking lightning defeat of the Gaza division of the Israeli army, and all the atrocity stories and stuff, much of which turned out to be just complete fabrications. And so they will take what people were saying when the first reports of the beginning of the uprising were coming, and claim they were saying it in response to all sorts of shit that nobody had heard until days later.
Popular demonstrations. All of it is legitimate and all of it is necessary. Okay, this was their immediate response in support of the intentional massacre of families and the taking of children as hostages before Israel did anything in response.
Oh yeah, because Israel had never done anything prior to the 7th of October. It wasn't like they were doing pogroms on that very day that the resistance was responding to. And this other stuff, again, somebody writing on the 7th of October did not hear anything about any of that yet. And if anything, pro-Palestinian activists in the U.S. were often actually erring in the other direction of lending completely undue credence to the Israeli claims about what went down on October 7th rather than waiting for the evidence to come in. And plenty of people who I otherwise respect actually said, "Oh well, these things are terrible. That's not a good thing," and did not say, "Well, so far this is what Israel claims happened. Let's see what the evidence is before we believe it, because Israel has a long history of lying about these things." But I see it is nearly 1 a.m. It is time to wrap it up. Thank you to everyone who has come. It's always good to see you all. And if you want to keep in touch in between streams, here's my Discord. And if you like the stream and you are able to do so, I very much would appreciate donations to the stream. Right now, it's a rough time for translators, and every little bit helps. If you can't, I know everybody's fucked, So I would not want anyone to feel pressure to do anything that they can't, they can't do. But if they can and they want to, just know I thank you. But it's just thank you also just for being here. It's just lovely seeing you all in chat every time. It's an enjoyable experience for me as well, just because of that. And I look forward to seeing you next week, Friday at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, right here. And if you have ideas for videos that you'd like me to react to, drop them in the Discord. Tell me about them. I'd love to hear it. Like, I'm sure you all have seen shit in your YouTube recommendations that you'd love to hear me, hear my take on and stuff. And I'd love to hear about them. Apart from everything else, it makes my life easier. It makes it easier for me to find content. So please don't be a stranger with that. Tell me all about it. I want to hear it. This done. Have a good night. Good luck.